are live. But if you can hear us out there in the wild world, my name is Brian Francis. I am once again the anonymous voice in the chat, or not in the chat. I'm the anonymous voice in the corner. Uh, and I'm joined today by two wonderful folks here. Down in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, Chris and Alex. Chris, could you introduce yourself for me?
I can, and I will. I am Chris Graft, editor-in-chief of Gamasutra. We are about the art and business of making games.
Yeah. And I'm Alex Warrow, an editor at Gamasutra, and I'm all about the business of writing about the business of art and making games. We like video games.
It's gonna get turtles all the way down real quick here if we don't put a stop to this.
Games.
We are here today. I'm sad to announce that we were here today to talk with a BioWare producer, Mike Gamble, about the making of Mass Effect Andromeda. However, at the last minute, I was informed he had to run off for some launch-related dev stuff and couldn't join us. I realize that's not the best look for a game that's been somewhat has the coals under it, but we're still going to play. We're still going to talk about it because there's so much to talk about with Mass Effect, and we've had.
Well, he is to his credit though. He is producer on the game, a producer. So he's probably got some legitimate stuff he's got to take care of.
And credit to BioWare's PR team. Like they came back to us, and EA they came to us and said, "Oh, we're really sorry, guys. We wanted to do this, but we have to keep our game running." So.
Launching games is hard.
Making games is hard. So Mass Effect Andromeda, for those who somehow have been living under a rock, is BioWare's latest Mass Effect game. And so it will be the fourth game in the series, and this one takes place in a new setting, a lot of new characters, a lot of the same old species, and it has launched to some critique about some of the technological stuff, but a lot of the reviews last night came out kind of on the positive side. Like, kind of it read a lot like a typical BioWare review, which is like writing's great, fighting's meh, like technical issues abound. But in the midst, I'd say the central thing that I think we kind of agreed on was in the middle of like the slate of games that have launched this year that have really like kind of pushed the boundaries of what their various genres have expected. You've got Zelda, you've got Horizon Zero Dawn, you've got Resident Evil 7, like you've got Nier, you've got Neo. A lot of people, like, I think just in the context of this release, Mass Effect is taking something of a beating because it's doing what BioWare has always been good at and not necessarily like the things that are new don't always like push on what's new.
So how far? Let's take a quick tally here among the three of us. So, Bryant, how far are you into the game?
I'd say I've put in about 7 to 8 hours, but I feel like I did it. I feel like hang on, I have to handle something here. We do invite folks to type in the chat, but if please keep the chat friendly. I've 7 to 8 hours. I've gotten past the first planet. I've gotten past my first bulk of side questing, which is the point in any massive BioWare game where I usually decide if I'm in or not. And so I'm on my way now to like figure out what quest I want to do next, which can either go back to EOS and work on more side quests, or I can move forward on the main quest, or I can. And apparently there's some quests where I have to wait for people to email me. So this game is turning just like real life.
I like that game, the email game.
Yeah.
If you're 7 hours in to Mass Effect, that means that there's been 7 hours that you haven't played Zelda Breath of the Wild, though.
Yeah, but I've played a lot of Zelda Breath of the Wild because I've just taken I've taken that with me on the go.
Yeah. Alex, you've played a little bit too. How far are you in it?
Let's see. I don't know. I'd say about 4 to 6 hours or so in. I feel like I'm far enough in that I've seen a good chunk of the game's systems, and I met some key characters.
Some characters.
Yeah, and I drove around in the sweet space dune buggy, so that was all right. How about you?
I am just a Mass Effect Andromeda baby right now. I've just been born almost. Now I'm only like maybe an hour into it. So right now the story is I'm barely qualified to have an opinion on this, But here I am anyway.
A
But
man on
yeah,
the internet.
yeah, a man on the internet with an opinion. I actually, right now, it's like the stories move in. There's like the developments are happening really fast. I like the premise of it. It's kind of just a shit show. That's what's happening right now, and I like it when when writers do that, where it's just like, wow, this like really big, awesome goal, and then right off the bat, it's just problem after problem after problem. Um, but I know that like with every other open world RPG, almost aside from the almost perfect Zelda Breath of the Wild, that things kind of slow down to like more of a grind, and story developments happen typically and like there's more space in between the major developments. So I mean, going into right now, and just after, like, I read Eurogamer's review this morning that was kind of like, yeah, there's some bright spots, there are some not so great spots, there's like glitchy stuff that's going on as well, that I'm sure that BioWare is currently working on, literally currently working on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm the thing is with me, like, I kind of skipped Mass Effect 3 story. I really liked 1. I loved 2. And 3, I was just kind of over like the whole format of
Mhm.
that. Like, go around and collect your heroes, and then save the planet, save the universe.
Sure.
So actually,
But like, yeah.
I
So,
wanted to
so
jump.
anyway, to wrap it up, I'm ready to get back into it and just be in the universe and see some Krogans or whatever the heck.
Just hang out, touch some Krogan, say hi to some Asari. Say what's up.
Yeah.
Fall in love with someone. I'm actually. I wanted to talk about that because I think this is actually something I didn't get to. I tweeted out some pre-reading reviews for like These are my thoughts and no one else's impressions last night. About what I think this game is doing well and what I think. And I want to talk about something I didn't get to talk a chance about. Is that from a writing and design standpoint, something that the game nicely sets up, differentiates itself from the older Mass Effects very well, is that the game does not set up a save the universe conflict in the first few hours, and it does a really good job setting up the idea that like we're just trying to find a place to live, to the point that when you actually find a place to live, and it comes kind of after that big dungeon setting that Alex and I have gotten through,
Hmm.
it feels
It
good.
it sets up daddy issues in the first 30 minutes,
Oh
right?
well, those sort of. Oh my god, those are
that's,
not
that's
as.
that's the new trend in games, right? I think
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was just talking to my father, who is himself, as you may know, a dad, on Sunday about.
so am I. I'm making my own issues for my own kids.
Oh my god.
I mean,
yeah.
it is definitely a thing where, as game designers, as the field of game design advances and people get older, it does feel like we're seeing more and more stories about dads, missing dads, dead dads, dads who are back from the dead. So yeah, no, you're spot on.
Okay, space.
I do want to say, like, I feel like we all have a mixed bag of feelings about this project. I do want to say something nice about it, which is that the engine is often put to fantastic use in creating vistas, because Brian just mentioned that he and I have gotten to a segment where we go underground as part of the main storyline, and there is some amazing work there where there are these like vast dark underground vistas, almost like a Hollow Earth kind of like sci-fi setup.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Like, that stuff, like, there are some
and
questions
EOS
that are
itself,
posed.
the first planet you spend time on, like, it looks great.
Yeah.
Like, I've played several open world games lately, and they all look great, and EOS looks great. And
It reminds me of the way they used Frostbite in Dragon Age Inquisition a year or two back. A lot of people didn't like some of those zones, but I really enjoyed all of it. I enjoyed the first zone of the hinterlands. I enjoyed just getting the chance to wander and climb mountains and look at big vistas. Like, I'm like a scenic postcard kind of person, right?
You're
like,
a Vista fanatic, it sounds like.
I'm all about them vistas, and there are some pretty good vistas in this game.
By the way, quick reminder just to everyone in chat, feel free. I've got an eye on the comments here. Alex has an eye on the comments, so we're gonna try and talk with everyone. I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna do what I don't normally do, which is like I'll spend all my time in the zone trying to fill out all the side quests, and I'm gonna just trek along on the main quest right now because that'll get us to another cool set of stuff to look at. Um,
What I find, just like watching you play, and I noticed this when I was playing, how weird it feels that you're just like running inside all the time.
yeah.
But anyway, that's totally beside the point.
So one cool thing I think is worth comparing from a kind of world design standpoint is the way BioWare, Guerrilla Games, and Nintendo have all differentiated how they build their civilized spaces. Because I think there's a lot to unpack. I was talking about maybe writing a blog post breaking down quest design, but talking about inhabited space design. I'm going to give you like the 2-minute version of this, and then maybe hopefully we can talk our way through like the bigger ideas. But there's the sense that in Mass Effect, they've done a great job like filtering out places like the Nexus with like characters, conversations, and side quests and moments that can happen. Horizon Zero Dawn actually is not as doing as great a job on this because the Soul City that's in the game and a lot of the villages that you deal with don't actually don't necessarily do a great job like providing it with a sense of lived-in spaces. Like there's NPCs walking around, but the most you can do is interact with them once, and the questing fulfills a very different purpose. So you're not talking to a lot of random villagers. It feels very structured if you want to talk to someone. And Zelda, we talked about this when we did our stream last week, does this amazing job. Sorry, phone. Zelda does this amazing job trying to make sure every NPC has some bit of gameplay information to give you, and it then juices them up with all this personality. Oh boy, that's not good. That's not good. Villain time. But I think that's like a key thing to take about Mass Effect, that BioWare still has a very good model for making spaces and civilizations feel good. And it's on play here, and it works I still think it's working well here with the time of the Nexus. This looks bad. Oh man, this looks bad. Sorry, I'm turning into just a streamer now.
Yeah, this is actually a bit of a spoiler for me, but I'm on board. Let's do it.
Scan them back. Yeah, sorry everyone, spoiler warnings.
Yeah.
Video games, it's fine.
So there's a comment from Giblix. Says, is that a type, or is there such a term as sinus movement? Aren't we in a sinus movement? Anyway, gradually going away from open world concepts since more and more people get tired about it.
I
think no, not at all. I think that there are different approaches now, and again, I haven't played enough of Andromeda to really comment on it, but from like the first two, just felt like they're kind of like you start at like one node, and then that allows you to split into several. Like all the arcs are going in the same direction, but they're still going to the one pretty much, or like couple like endpoints. Whereas I think like just playing Zelda, I need to like get my thoughts down straight as to like why Zelda's open world feels so much fresher than anything else that I've played, because that's a different tack. That is big, like lots of variety in the environments. It's super sandbox, like it's just a huge playground more than any other open world. I think maybe Zelda is somewhere in between how like where BioWare designs their open worlds, and on the other side of the spectrum, like Bethesda does theirs.
Yeah.
It's got like a certain amount of direction, and I need to think about it more to make it sound smarter than I'm making it myself sound right now. But my point is that there are different ways to approach open world design, and certainly they're not going like away, and people are not getting tired of them.
I think what's part of what's making Mass Effect struggle in some like people's, I mean, aside from the animations which you're getting a look at right now, part of the struggle is that Mass Effect it pushed a lot of ways for character and open world to live together, and for character for people to have conversations, and like that kind of like other games. Zelda and Horizon Zero Dawn got to borrow from that, and Mass Effect is now coming forward not getting to borrow from them, and not yet anyway. So like it's kind of interesting, but they have been borrowing from Minecraft, from other open world games, from even Battlefield, I guess, because Frostbite was made for Battlefield, and now they're trying to recreate some of the technical, things that Battlefield engine can do.
So you two who have played it more than I have, it seems about as it could possibly even be more dialogue and relationship focused than the first trilogy. Is that true, or do you get any indication of that? Because that's like the defining factor for me if you're talking about BioWare open world RPGs versus other ones. Just it's about like the relationships and the way you interact with each other in a giant universe.
It's I think it's hard to tell even Brian's, even if he's 8 hours in, like, where I'm at, it's hard to tell what the scope and breadth of the story will be. It's easy to tell what the foundation is, and so far it seems well in line with any other Mass Effect game in terms of like quantity of characters you meet, things they talk to you about, interesting conversations you have within that first hour. Brian and I were talking briefly before we started about all the parallels between this game and the original Mass Effect, which is that there's an opening mission that seems fine, something bad happens. You're graced with two side kicks that are fine but kind of bland, and then you go on to meet a cast of much more interesting characters and wander around a space station for a while. Unfortunately, and it bums me out to say this, because I do think the story is intriguing and the worlds are often gorgeous, but like often in dialogue, I find myself very confused about what's going on and very confused about what facial expressions are being made or not being made in tune with the dialogue. It often seems stilted or rushed, and so I don't actually really know where the game is going to go or what plot threads it's going to spool out, because I often am confused about why I'm doing things or why people are saying things.
That's me typically on every single story-based open world game. I mean,
do feel kind of like a dad.
Yeah. I mean, you don't really like know your motivation, and when you're doing an open world game, yet you want to have like a narrative, like authorship over it. Also, you want to have like tell a story too. I think that some games they try to hold on too hard to the story that they want to tell when it's an open world game. When you can't do that. I mean, this is like super easy for me to say because I don't work on open world RPGs.
Right. None of us make open world RPGs.
I say keep on trying because maybe someone can crack the code, like telling like a strongly authored story in an open world type game design. However, like one of the things that's cool about, I'm going to keep talking about Zelda because that's all I've been playing. Like the thing with that is that it does that. It kind of lets it loose. Like it doesn't try to hang on it too hard. It's really straightforward. Like, what's the story about? It's about a kid who needs to like destroy Ganon. Like that's kind of like save Hyrule, and and everything else that's happening around it. Like it'd be really difficult. I mean, there's like relationships with other characters, but they're relationships that aren't like necessarily super systemized like they are in Mass Effect. Like you have a relationship with a character in Zelda because I don't know, because it's hard to say.
I think you hit on something there,
but it's not because you exchange a ton of dialogue.
Yeah, that makes me think of. So I also been playing a lot of Zelda because I think it's a really good game, and I can't stop. So I think in that game, and something that I believe Moo Manibe said in the chat a minute ago is true for me too, which is that I think the open world in Breath of the Wild is really rewarding because it constantly feels like you're discovering something. Like every time you climb a mountain or duck into a valley or climb into a cave, there's something in there for you. There's a trial or a chest or something. And that all feels like handcrafted, but not obvious. And, when I try to compare that to why I feel like the open planet in Andromeda is like kind of lifeless and not that rewarding, it's not that there aren't things to find. Like you can get out there and discover items and enemy camps and settlements and stuff. But I think part of it is that in this game, because of its large cast of characters, everything you are achieving is not really for yourself; it's for somebody else. And so when you're like, I think the conceit of this game, which is that you're going out and like making worlds habitable for other people, is a really strong narrative like hook. That's very hopeful. That's very uplifting. It's optimistic. It's awesome. But at the end of it, you're just driving around these planets like increasing numbers. And when numbers hit certain thresholds, you get things. Like you will get more resources for another number, or you'll get more numbers to your experience charts. You'll get new powers or more numbers to put in your powers, and it's all tied up in this web of other people asking you to do things to get numbers to go up, and that is very removed from the player's experience. Like you're just kind of like getting these tallies to go up with no clear reason other than like if I get enough numbers up high enough, I'll be good at this. Like I'll unlock everything and I'll have all the powers. Whereas in Zelda, like every time you discover something, it's for you. It's like I get this thing that I can now go use in my like from this moment to the next.
Yeah,
and that is a much more rewarding loop, I think.
Yeah, I think that well, I mean, you described like 90% of like RPGs and maybe even video games doing something to make numbers go up.
Yeah, make numbers.
I mean, a fan of doing that.
Making numbers go up is oddly how some people define RPGs more than story combat dialogue, because people closely associate those numbers with identity, like what Obsidian does a lot is it makes the numbers very expressive pretty well. Mass Effect is kind of BioWare, I feel like for a long time has been caught where like it does such a great job with story, animation, dialogue trees, and then when it comes to the number side, it's kind of like, well, Paragon and Renegade. And this game is improving on that. I like the way the dialogue is handled in this game a lot more, and I like Ryder. I'm getting to like Ryder and more because of it. But because you get to really finally negotiate who you are, and what kind of responses you give people. Like right there, instead of Paragon or Renegade, it was like, "Damn right, I came here," or "I apologize, I'm trying to be a diplomat." And it's not like good or evil. Like Paragon and Renegade was already a step up from Light Side Dark Side from KOTOR, and on this game. In this game so far, I've enjoyed getting to build a more nuanced character, and it's helping me find that nice thing I like about like the system. I like the way. I mean, I just like interacting with people and spending time with them. And Zelda doesn't necessarily offer that. So if I spend more time with Mass Effect, it's going to be because of that.
Yeah, and Mass Effect does that. Like historically, that's what Mass Effect is to me. Mm-hmm. Is just building up these relationships through the dialogue systems and things like that. I want to go back really quick to something that Alex mentioned, and you said that it's not like in Zelda, it's not obvious. Like when you go somewhere, like something happens, or you come across something that isn't, you don't expect it to be there, and there's always some kind of little reward, whether it's just like rewarding your own curiosity or rewarding you with some kind of like special like item that you might get there. I mean, you'll be I just can't get over like how good Zelda is at drawing you to places or very purposefully making you stumble upon like something that you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
Like just like I'm just talking like the landscape wise, if you want to call that like the open world level design there, where there are these points. So for example, like you're walking around the desert and all of a sudden you see these like giant colossi that are in a circle, and it's really good. People throw this term around a lot in game development, but environmental storytelling. Mm-hmm. But like it still leaves this mystery about like how did those get there, and you feel like you're coming along after like there was like it's totally post-apocalyptic. I mean, Zelda is a post-apocalyptic game.
Yeah.
Like the Calamity Ganon came and destroyed everything. This is like the coolest though, like vision of a post-apocalyptic world. I mean, if somebody told you like 5 years ago, or like after Skyward Sword came out and said like, oh yeah, next Zelda is going to be a post-apocalyptic video game. It's going to be open world, sandbox, post-apocalyptic. Like what? Like Fallout? It's like
I like that point you just made a lot. Although I'll briefly say several Zeldas have actually been post-apocalyptic to some extent. Wind Waker.
Brian,
But
did you use actually us?
yeah, I did. Get used to it. Actually, sorry, I'm trying to read the subtitles because I have the audio off for the stream.
Yeah, so I feel like I should clarify. Like, we're talking about these two games because they came out in close proximity and they have some similar overarching elements. I don't mean to imply that Andromeda suffers by not being more like Zelda or or Zelda is better.
Doesn't it, Alex? Doesn't it?
Okay,
but I do think that BioWare is here tapping into a design. Philosophy of design that it has perfected, or it has at least honed to a razor sharp edge in previous games, and that design hinges on the narrative and the characterization. And I can't speak for anyone else, but I don't. The longer the game goes on, the less interested I am in these characters and their stories because I'm so disassociated from the moment-to-moment acting, and that is in itself rendering all of those pieces of game that are feeding through those loops less interesting because I no longer want to do quests to open up new areas to find new people. I don't want to do loyalty missions because I don't care about the characters enough to go through the hassle of it. All of that is happening to me, and I'm only a couple hours in, so that could change. But that's this game suffers, because what it hinges on is not maybe as strong as it could be, and that's really helping me out.
Just because we're sort of orbiting the same planet right now over and over again. I want to jump into Moonman IB's comment about Zelda's currency system and crafting, because currency and crafting are also what sort of Horizon Zero Dawn, the other open world game du jour, and Mass Effect are dealing with right now, in that they're trying to populate their worlds with not just interesting people and how to kill them, but or in Mass Effect's case, sleep with them. Maybe Zelda's too, because everyone talks about that shark. But they're trying to say, here's all the things you can pull out of the environment, and here's how you can bend them to your usefulness. Moonman IB points about how the streamlined system of Zelda makes it simple, makes it like there's a useful to it that's clear and definable. And Mass Effect definitely suffers from what the hell am I gathering and what the hell am I making? Because right off the bat, you can almost make anything that's in the system, and it doesn't feel like I'm kind of how did this go through without some tutorializing or some gating? Because this just feels like, okay, here's everything you can make. Here's the first level of it, and you can use this to customize your combat style. But your combat style is just such a drop into it without any experimentation. And they try to ham-fist it into that intro where your dad is just
He's just being your dad. He's just being a cool dad.
Your dad is just shouting Sam, activate engineer profile or something, and they're trying to explain that this is how you're going to build us on this. I'm really sad because I wish I had the audio for this scene. This is the kind of scene I like.
The thing with
choice coming up,
kind of what Alex was talking about. I mean, I've had similar feelings in Mass Effect, but those feelings have always been more than balanced out with payoffs during the story.
Yeah.
I
absolutely agree.
Yeah, I would say that Mass Effect 1 was the last Mass Effect game to have this kind of inventory and crafting problem, where you were pulling stuff out of the world, and what the heck am I gathering? How the heck do I use it? Is never clearly. I mean, it has to be so clearly put into this. Alex, quick question: did you know if there was an armor loadout space on your ship, or do I have to wait to get into a mission to mess with those? That door just slammed on me. What the heck? That was so weird.
That's rough.
No, you are not going in that room.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I'm afraid. Here at Gamasutra, we don't really worry about anything like game reviews, so none of us have finished the game. I just happened to stumble into an armor loadout option when I was going down to planet. So you should just try going down to your planet and seeing if you can pick it there.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky thing to talk about because this game is in the context of a storied franchise, and it's coming out at a time when a lot of good stuff is coming out. And we can't discount the fact that like when we talk about the old games, those were almost a decade ago. I think Mass Effect 1 was 2007. So our the state of games then is different than it is now. But it just doesn't seem to have the same rhythm. It doesn't have the same. You don't want to use the word polish. That's too vague. But like, there's something about this game that it doesn't pay off in the same way right away. And I often am struggling now to try and put that into words beyond just I don't care about the characters and the acting is rushed or weird or stilted. But I don't know that that's something that we can stand here and say like, oh well, that during QA they should have noticed that this was that or this was whatever. Like, who knows what this game went through? It is a miracle any game ever ships. But I don't know. Like, so Brian, when you're talking about that, the early like confusion with your systems, like, is there a way you think designers could more elegantly convey that to a player if they were working on a similar system?
What's weird because we have two other ways to compare to it now, right? That's not the plan I want to go to. Horizon Zero Dawn has its way and Zelda has its way. What's funny is Zelda's just is front-loading you with the most major tools you're going to use all the time. And what the heck? These aren't the planets I thought I was going to. I need to look
Pick
at
a planet, any planet.
Designers should be watching the stream right now. So basically, Bryant is UX like UI playtest.
So this is something I think about a lot, right? Because we talk to game developers who often say like, the rise of YouTube has actually been a huge boon to QA because we can watch people play our games while it's still not finished. If they're playing early builds or early access or whatever. But like if you're trying to talk while playing a game, you're really bad at playing that game. So like Brian right now is doing two things at once. I don't know that like most players would have that kind of difficulty, but maybe they would.
Okay, so I thinking I also need a minute to compose my thoughts. I think there's the gating is too wide open. Like the staging of this game is so like drop you in, which I feel like comes from a development of just trying to get everything working and then building the first level, which is my understanding of how a lot of development goes. Like you spend someone once said to me like you spend so much of your time on the first like you spend 80% of development on the first 10% of the game or something, and then you get the rest of it working. But open world games tend to be like you just try to get the freaking world working, and then you can build missions around it. That's not a quote about how this game went down, but the current challenge of this game is that it is extremely difficult to process why I should be making what interesting choices about combat, because I have no context for any of it. And right now, by the way, let's talk about this scanning system because nobody likes this.
Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but I don't know that anybody here is.
I've not yet a professional review that talks about scanning, so I liked the scanning in Mass Effect 2, and I guess it was also in Mass Effect 3. Yeah, I'm a weirdo because it just felt like a nerd thing, and they've actually brought that system over, but it's on the planet's surface when you're traveling around. And you get to use that same like scanning system. This is literally for a while there I was like going to each individual planet in the system and trying to scan a whole planet, trying to see if I could find any secrets. You literally need the characters to tell you, the engineer just said I'm just picking up something. So now I'm picking up this probe right here. This is so like staged that it's not as interesting as it was back in 2. But I'm still doing it because I need to make the numbers go up. I actually personally wonder if there was some weird space piloting exploration thing that got cut, because looking at this first-person moving through space experience, this feels like the vestigial limb of some older system. So that's pure speculation, by the way. I mean, aside from maybe a rumor or two I heard during production that they were trying to make like space travel, like that was literally just a rumor. But it feels like a vestigial system of them trying to take then this is what's left over, which is such a I feel for any game designer who has to like watch players play like a shipped version of an idea that they've been working so hard on, and finally they realize this is all we can get out the door. But the scanning system I'm doing it right now, but it's easily one of those things in gameplay that you can sort of like poke around and go, wow, this feels undercooked.
So this is supposed to be kind of like exploration
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, at least. Like that at least, I applaud that, and I think more games, especially with big budgets, should try and focus on topics like exploration and discovery. Like that is a weirdly unmined load of subject material for game design. Probably
unmined.
Moonman IB says, "I'm doing it because it needs to make the numbers go up." Is the worst motivation for stuff. I will to give this mechanic what little credit what credit I also should. I have an inherent personal interest in seeing pretty things in space, so good thing that's here. And I like reading these. Like BioWare always writes great analysis for these planets. That's one reason I like doing it. But this is definitely way less well. I like a lot of people hated the Mass Effect 2 one, but I liked the Mass Effect 2 one. Okay, this is kind of interesting right here. You see like the shadow of something bigger. Like look how when scanning this planet, the anomaly is physically like there's a physical thing on the globe. It's not just an XYZ point. Like there's something down here for you to look at, but they can only get you there with by telling you there's something here. Go look for it.
Yeah, I think that is neat. And like I should say, when we're talking about reasons to get involved with what you might call gameplay, I think the combat in this game, which I was, when we were first talking about this game months ago, and the idea of like a soft cover system came up and stuff, I thought, well, that doesn't sound very much fun. I don't really want to. That sounds confusing and tricky and not at all reliable. And I actually kind of enjoy the combat in this game. Like it's not
fun.
I wouldn't say it's like top class, but it is fun and it's enjoyable. It is challenging in the right ways. But like that's, I think it all comes back to the core foundation of this game is characters and story, and that keeps leaving me wanting, and that's
here I can
sort
load
of
out the armor. Okay, thank God.
That sort of undercuts every other system, unfortunately, which is too bad.
I'm going to what is this? Biotic amp, 275 melee damage. Oh, I can change what thing I'm striking with. Okay. I'm gonna keep my
craft it into something.
Oh, this isn't crafting. This is loading out.
You said to call your horse.
Have to call my horse. Oh my God. I actually made a lot of. The reason I wanted to work on this was I made a lot of gear and I couldn't figure out how to equip it. 10% counter scavenger.
So like watching you play this, the thing is like I definitely, again, I'm only like an hour into it, and I am into the story and like the development, like the pace of the development so far. Though I know that there's going to be a bunch of like typical open world craft type quests and things. But watching you play this, I mean, like once I inevitably get bored of Zelda in like a decade or something, then. But this definitely like something that I'd like to play again. I pretty much skipped out on Mass Effect 3 outside of multiplayer, but like I like this universe. It's like an old pal.
It's a good thing I turned the helmets off for gameplay because.
Oh my God, this is the first game I've ever wanted to turn helmets on for everything. I feel terrible about that, but like I would look for an option like, okay, I want to turn all the helmets on all the time. Because I don't want to see the faces. I just want to hear the voices.
Oh, by the way, they don't tutorialize your way through like this very menu right here. Like everything I'm navigating, I don't know if you even do it on EOS, but it didn't tell me to go like grab the teammate. It hasn't told me to go grab the crewmates I wanted in the way that like Mass Effect 2 was brilliant. It was like, here's this, you can't continue until you actively make a choice about who you want to bring. And right now, it could have just let me slip out with Cora and Liam again. And I'm not doing that because Cora and Liam are like, you never play Mass Effect for the humans.
I think you're right, but I'm also like personally okay with that. Like when I stumbled upon these menus like yesterday, after like 4 or 5 hours of playing the game, like I didn't necessarily.
Oh, sweet! I can pick my paint job. I think I might have gotten Midas Touch. I might have gotten that from.
That is a pre-order bonus.
Yeah, because we get a pre-order version of the game when you
yeah. Pre-order bonus.
You nerds. Paint it gold. Yeah, no, it's a sweet gold buggy, and that stuff. I think you're right, Brian. But I don't necessarily. I fall on the edge of like less tutorialization. Like I like it when games don't hold your hand, and even if that makes it hard and confusing sometimes. But I say that, and I also still like I have a problem with the way the story is brought in. Like in the very beginning of the game, you're not really effectively told why you're there or what the Andromeda Initiative is. You kind of have to look it up in the codex.
I want to jump in. on one thing that I think is very like I can make a clear talk between. There's a GDC talk that's now in the vault, and there's stuff about the opening of Mass Effect Andromeda that you can make a clear link to. Harrison
Yeah.
Pink did a talk at GDC about about how you need time with characters to build relationships with them, and how you can't just expect players to players will not care unless they get to spend time with someone and get to know them, and there are a million different ways to do that, but you can't just make people care because they're relationships. And the first part of that game breaks that rule so much, because it's like, here's your brother, he's in trouble, feel bad. Here's your dad, spoilers, he's dying, bad. Oh, that's cool though. That's cool. This is my jam.
Yeah, that is cool.
This is my jam right now.
Giant.
Oh my
things in
god, that's
space.
so cool.
Yeah, there are some really cool parts of this game. Like there
Yeah.
are great vistas. It's
You and your vistas.
So,
Yeah.
but you cannot. I'm a writer, so I have a personal. I feel like this might be way too much of my personal opinion about this, but you can't do that and expect players to care as much as you do about this family, especially because for the rest of the next even 8 hours, you don't get any chance to do family stuff again. But the game starts you off with I still can't understand why you're not just the Pathfinder when you start and you get introduced to a lot of your systems. For some reason they feel the need to have this transfer of power from your dad to you, and I'm just like, why? I don't care.
Yeah,
Although,
it's using. I mean, that's a really good point to bring up, which was the point that Harrison made in his talk and when he was on stream with us, and just him explicitly saying you can't take a shortcut with the relationships. Like you have to have the player spend time with the character. That time might be 30 minutes, or that might be in Yakuza 0, where it's over the course of 20 hours, and then you really kind of just really get to relate with one another. But at the beginning, and they do this with Last of Us, they do this with a bit with Horizon Zero Dawn at the beginning, where they use the narrative mechanic, quote unquote, of this person is your daughter, or this person is your dad, or this person is your mom. So
Horizon
that should automatically mean that you as a player make that analogy to I love my mom, so I love this mom in the game too, because it's my mom.
I actually
it doesn't work.
I'm going to get defensive about Horizon Zero Dawn for a minute, because I actually loved how it's not your parent. And even though they do the sad dad dies, sorry, Horizon Zero Dawn spoilers. We just spoil things on the stream. Even though it's not sad, they do sad dad dies. With that, they do also they spend a lot of time using this conflict of who you are, why everyone hates you, and they build a lot of character interactions about why people don't want to talk with you. Horizon Zero Dawn puts in work, even though it's not stuck. Even though it does do a dad thing, it's very different than this dad thing.
Right.
That it puts a lot of complications on the dad thing to make it interesting.
Yeah.
And while maybe the dad death isn't that great, comparatively speaking, because it's not like it happens at a key moment in the story later on. It's still very early on, and you should care because it's your dad. There's a big difference here between just it's your dad and it's
Right,
the man
yeah,
who raised
so-
you when he didn't have to.
Yeah. So let me clarify too.
Yeah.
I just kind of threw
Yeah,
that out there, but yes, thank you for clarifying that, because you can still have the dad character or the familial relationship character, and still have it work. But you do have, that doesn't mean that you can't have your characters spend time with that character. There's I completely agree with that. That was eye-opening for me, for someone to just explicitly say you can't shortcut that, and then you start going back and thinking about the games where you really care about the characters. Oh, it's because I actually spent time doing things with them, in Persona 4. You spend. I mean, the mechanic is just spend time with the character.
Yeah.
Spend time, hang out with this character. And that works so well because it develops the one-on-one. It's a large group of people, but it develops a one-on-one relationship with every single one of them. That's one reason why I think it works quite well. And for that matter, at times in Bioware games, it works.
Yeah.
So I should say, like, I actually am super susceptible to the dad effect. Like, I played all the way through Fallout 3 and 4, trying to mainline the quests, because in one of them my dad was in trouble, and the other one I was a mom and my kid was in trouble. So I was like, that super works on me.
Yeah.
And it kind of works for me here too. Like I'm bummed out, you know.
I
But
thought
like
Fallout
there,
4 actually did a great. Fallout 4 was like a pretty great take on like just dropping you in.
yeah. But I think there's more to sort of tease apart for learnings in the opening of this game than just like that conceit it falls back on of, oh, your dad's in trouble, oh, your dad's dead, it's your
Yeah.
job. Because there's more to it. There's the politics of power, right? Like there's like your character is granted the mantle of a certain position, and it turns out that there's other people that maybe felt like they deserved it instead, and they talk. But the problem is, like, again, it comes back to the way this game is written, which is that like the conversation that happens about that an hour or two in is written as though you should have a lot of background on it.
Yeah.
Like you should have been watching 3 to 4 episodes of this TV show, and now they're having a mid-season conversation about like the practical, like how they were hurt by what happened, but they're gonna stand by you or they're gonna stand against you or whatever. But that never that background never happened. You just are dropped into this conversation, and they talk as though you should know what's going on, and that recreates the feeling. Like in a way, it's a very authentic feeling of the player feels like they've been dropped into a universe and are totally kind of like they're on their own, but like like you don't want to feel like you're sitting down on a couch next to your friend or your significant other when they're halfway through a TV show and you're just coming into for the first time.
Yeah.
Like you want to know what's going on, and the way this game is structured and written, at least in the first couple hours, it doesn't come together like that. It really kind of drops the ball, I think, and that's unfortunate.
Before we bounce off each other more, I want to go to the chat. Moonman IB is saying that this is a big problem with Shadow of Mordor because they kill the family and have it be the driving motivation like 2 minutes into the game. You know what's very strange? I feel
Didn't work
like
for me, though.
I've heard so many. I don't know, like Harrison Pink's talk was such a great like rebuttal of this, but I feel like there's a lot of upper level people in game development who just feel so strongly about the need to kick off a game with this kind of thing, and unfortunately, like this is a weird place to come from because we're all just reporters. We haven't worked as much in games, but like, where do you think that comes from? That like, why is there like this lack of confidence from people who aren't necessarily on the writing side of just being able to kick off with who your character is and their powers and let them meet people? Like, why is there a need to try and inflict trauma at the start of the game like that?
I think because part of it could be because games, typically the way that, the traditional sense of games, there needs to be some kind of conflict. You got to give me a reason to shoot somebody, right?
Yeah.
So then you establish that right off the bat. Why am I going to such lengths? Why am I just kind of an Indiana Jones-ish type person, and I'm just like capping people in the head like right off the bat? Like you start with a conflict, and a lot of times it does relate to a vengeance story or something like that. And something like that, just giving the player like the narrative motivation to go out and get into the actual gameplay. I mean, that conflict has to be established right at the beginning, and
Right.
a lot of times, like that's the reason, because somebody killed like your kid, or Jason got lost at the mall, or
Yeah, I think, and I think I don't want to poke too many holes in it. Like when it can be done well and effectively. Like we just mentioned, a half dozen games that did it well, or at least I thought they did it well.
Harrison's point, like to make her link between Horizon Zero Dawn and what Harrison's talk. Per Harrison, they deliberately did not make Clementine Lee's daughter because they felt a lack of connection would give them room to grow and explain things, and they could still like kick off with all these other like typical video gamey starting stuff. So maybe maybe it's sort of like you can use familial relationships, you can use familiar relationships to inflict trauma, but maybe just like use it like maybe if Shadow Mordor's 2's thing. Actually, no. I think Zelda is actually giving us a good example of how to do this too, because you start off very quickly on the gotta rescue Zelda, gotta kill Ganon stuff. But then if you go through the memories part of the quest, which is necessary, it's one of the main quests, and although maybe it's not necessary to ultimately beat Ganon, it's definitely like crucial in to some degree that I haven't fully figured out yet. You learn a lot about how Zelda is having all these doubts because she's not able to harness the power that her mother and grandmother did. But that slowly unpeels after you check point after point. Oh my God, that guy just like Sorry, this is what happens. I try to make cogent points and then violence happens. Metaphor for life. I think that's like maybe it's like Mass Effect is we're ragging on Mass Effect here. But if BioWare has always shown what they know how to do well, so they know how to complicate relationships, like they do the typical, like, figure out if the prisoner is innocent or guilty quest pretty early on, and I thought they did a pretty good job with that. They complicated it. But, like, complication is good, and I just hope game developers and people who lead game developers don't shy away from it. Like, complicated relationships make games interesting, even if it's a sword-swinging, like, exploratory, so little dialogue game. Like, even that one little touch makes so many more conventional Zelda tropes interesting. The idea that Zelda is a reluctant heroine, and I'm curious to know why she's like what complications. Like there's more places in the world to go, etc. Stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't necessarily has to do with how complicated or the complication or lack thereof that runs through Mass Effect's opening hours that makes or breaks it. I think to speak to what someone in the chat, Giblix is pointing out, like Mass Effect 1, they say took off slow, it got away with it somehow. I think that game gets away with it because the characters are interesting and like the plot is well laid out. So like in that game, you are a space marine, and you have like, and you're pretty boring, but then you have some interesting conversations. Captain Anderson or whatever is there, and he's fantastic. And then Nihilus is there, and he's fun to talk to. And then you land on the planet. And you go through your space, shoot them up, and that's fine.
I gotta say, it feels like they swapped out Captain Anderson for your dad, and which means they swapped out Keith David for Clancy Brown. That's his name. Yeah, it's clearly him. It's clearly Gorilla Grodd. No, it's clearly Lex Luthor. Like acclaimed voice actor Clancy. I can't remember your last name.
Okay,
but like they swapped him out for the interesting character to hang out with before, and unfortunately just. When you kill off your character with like one of the most recognizable voice actors, you don't have much to work with.
No, slow down. I mean, that's not what I was wanting to focus on. Like, sorry. Keith David's great, but your dad's also great. Like, I love Keith David. Don't get me wrong. You can't top him, but your dad's voice actor is fine, I think. But what it is like,
he's great. He just dies. That's all.
But in Mass Effect 1, like you have a very standard opening pulled off well, right? So like by the end of that like hour or two, you are face to face with an antagonist who is charming and interesting to talk to. You see in the background a looming threat, which is his ship, which turns out to be a Reaper. And then he does some cool stuff and then flies away, and then bad things happen and you get a battlefield promotion, and all of a sudden you're like the number one hero of the race, right? Because you're the first human Spectre. And that's a trope, but it's well done. Yeah. Here you have some of those same elements. You have that interesting, charismatic like leader type, and you have some people you're hanging out with. But like it just doesn't. It kind of falls apart. Like there's not really.
Oof. Check your mic.
There's
buzz.
That mic check? That my mic?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Why can I hear it? I apologize. Anyway, it just doesn't come together the same way. It's not. It doesn't go from good to great. It goes from good to kind of confusing. And
I will say I like the Pathfinder handoff in that the Pathfinder isn't the Spectre, because Pathfinder the role of the Pathfinder in the story is way less like you are awesome and we're going to give you all the like you have access to all these funds and weapons and et cetera, et cetera. Stuff like that is it's way more like this is a role you fill, but it's not the biggest role. Like you have a boss to operate to, you have to file paperwork, your middle management, like stuff like that.
Right.
So that I think they do that well here.
And I don't want to discourage that. Like if developers are watching this and seeing people go, oh, this is kind of turning folks off because they're not the Spectre. That's not what it is. Like I think it's great that they stepped away from the like the number one hero of the galaxy, top military agent guy, and now you're just an explorer, and you're just a very good, very talented, well equipped explorer. That's a super interesting line of narrative to explore, and maybe they'll take it interesting places before the game is over. I don't know.
Yeah, I like this little side quest we just did. By the way, that felt like a good little loop right there. Like, ran into a scientist, she asked for help, and the little bit of exploring the planet stuff we just did there felt good. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like the exploring stuff, like that idea. It's almost like you can tell that the game, like BioWare wanted the game to have a heavy exploration thing, especially in this game.
Yeah.
But it's so at odds with what people expect gameplay wise. So then it's kind of killing new animals and races and new exciting places type thing going on.
There's actually something interesting going on about the killing new people sort of stuff. Like, I feel like I read one op-ed, and I'll just go ahead and shoot straight. I read an op-ed like accusing Mass Effect of having colonialist themes, which refers to an academic theory about how European nations like essentially came to new places across the world, called them their own, set up colonies, and then sent abused locals and sent resources back to their homeland. That is a very bad. I apologize to all the academics watching. That is like a super bad way to try and explain the complex.
I think most Americans understand the whole colonialism.
I mean, like we hear like we're a colony who rebelled, and then like, but there are obviously people who are not. And Mass Effect, you can see the writers trying to gingerly write their way around the fact that you are a giant near military operation arriving in this new galaxy. Oh, that's a person, not an animal. Dang it. And you are coming here, and you mainly like the way you interact with the girl is talking and guns, but like you can't do both. Like you can't like there's no systemically way. Like there's just straight up people who only respond to murder, and you can feel them like with all the different factions you've encountered so far. You can feel them trying not to say these people are just coming here to loot and plunder for the homeworld. Like they're trying really hard to get something out of this beyond that.
It's funny though. Like the reason I just that thought occurred to me just now is because you're going around and just killing everything you see.
Right.
And even as they're explaining it, it's just like, really, it's not about the bam, bam, bam,
murder, stab. And actually,
I know what you're saying.
So quick thing, like we're going to talk about how they're trying to write their way around this. Like this poor fool whose body, what happened to his body? Her body? I'm not sure. Anyway, we'll look away from the corpse. This poor fool, they literally just dropped a line of dialogue saying, watch out for this group of this species who automatically hates outsiders and will shoot on sight. But when you meet the species in that scene that we had a couple weeks ago, they established that like they're not the Krell, the other group you've encountered, aren't locals who you're stomping on. They're also alien visitors who came in and were doing some bad stuff. So they're really trying to say like, hey, at least you're not as bad as those guys. And obviously, I think the key, like, there was that op-ed I read, and I just want that was on mic. The key thing I want to say about that is that there's just been so little, like, the story's only had so much time to explore these concepts that it's difficult. Yeah. It's difficult to make a final judgment on how it's exploring these themes, and I'm certainly being not an academic. I'm not super equipped to talk about that, but I just wanted to say it is tangibly observable that the developers are aware of the how systems have meaning here.
Oh, totally. I encountered the same stuff just in the first like hour or so of the game when you encounter like the hostile like creatures who like aliens who just start shooting at you for no identifiable reason.
Yeah.
And then it's like they basically say we're supposed to be explorers, and then they're just a few times, even the first hour, they bring up like, did we really just make enemies with the very first alien civilization that we even like came across? And so it's very self-aware that there is that tension between the exploration versus combat thing in the game, and I can appreciate the extreme difficulty of making a space combat game.
Yeah.
Without
I think the biggest like credit to them for at least tackling it head on and not just like saying that's the player's problem to deal with that, like, and morally how to feel with that. They seem to have a viewpoint, and I always appreciate developers developing from a viewpoint. I don't appreciate developers making combat scenes like this that are really hard though. Video games, am I right?
You just need to be a lead gamer, and then
Yeah.
then
I'm
Like
not a pro
Alex,
gamer
it's
like you,
through.
Alex.
That's right. Just hole in one every one of those guys right in the face.
Pulling one
Right.
right in the face.
Okay, so it looks like it's been an hour.
Oh my
Alex,
God.
did you have a closing thought there?
It's just this game. The more I play of it, the more I come to understand the value. The more I come to understand game writers' complaints about their work getting chopped up, cut up, and re-put back together in the production process. Because this game, to me, the more I play it, feels like it would make a lot of sense if you already knew the full scope of the lore and knew what everyone was trying to say before they said it. So I have a lot of sympathy now for production teams, QA teams, and the entire game development process.
I feel bad for all game developers.
I feel bad
It's
for
hard.
BioWare because the level of
It's
flack they're
hard.
getting for this game is not fair.
No, it's not. I mean,
And,
if
and
people,
especially, we can't go without talking about the fact that people are actually harassing a developer right now. That's just no.
yeah, it's absolute insanity. Like, and a lot of that, I think I've said this before. I say this all the time on like all over the place. But like one thing that's good and I'm proud about, but what we do on Gamasutra is we try to educate anyone who has access to Gamasutra.com about the like what it takes to make a video game. And it is really freaking hard to do that. Like you change like people like even us when we're kind of just rattling off some issues we have with it. There is like a giant story behind why it ended up that way. And the more like people in the game community need to understand that how complicated these things are. And I'm not saying that should absolve like any game developer from putting out a subpar product. I don't think Mass Effect Andromeda looks like a subpar product. And like the more people understand what goes into it, the more like understanding and empathy they might have that they actually have that this game is actually out and it is what it is. So yeah, read Gamasutra.com, find out how hard it is to make these games, and don't freaking harass people that about something you have no idea.
Normally,
like,
I would come through with I would be trying to manage some like deeply like how the heck do you balance the oh my God, it's the Sudoku puzzle. I'm all right. I'm pausing here, and we're gonna. Normally I would try to go through like the deeply complicated the fact that like when developers are struggling so hard to like keep their game away from the the public eye until it's done, and it's blah 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 because that was what No Man's Sky ran into. So they try to make promises. People get concerned about like whatever. That's like BioWare did their best to show off this game. The game, they gave people 10 hours early access before it even came out so that you could get a chance. They literally put like some of their what we've obviously talked about is the roughest stuff because it's not as strong as the stuff back here on the line, and people are going to town over it, and it's just not cool. Like it's bad. It's actively bad. It's mean. It's harassing. It's toxic. It makes people's lives worse. It makes people's lives worse whether they're not even the person being targeted because it makes them go, "Am I going to be next?" If I say one stupid thing about my game, if I joke about one stupid thing or show a wrong GIF from development or make some crack or put something on my LinkedIn, is that going to get me in trouble? Am I going to lose my job? And like if you're in a leadership position at a company, the best broadest takeaway from my rant right now is please help your devs feel comfortable about that because like it is genuinely scary, especially when you have some of the groups who've gotten involved with this latest round of harassment doing that.
Yes.
On that bitter note, I wish that wasn't the note we were ending on because we finally come to like a really cool stuff. And there's a great conversation in chat about there's a great conversation, just a shout out to everyone in chat talking about what a possible systemic world in Mass Effect would look like. Like if you kill X wildlife, it bounces off another wildlife system or something. And I think if there's any BioWare programmers in the room, they're probably just like twitching at the thought of having to make that. But it's still a cool idea. Just so that we end on something besides that depressing note. Thank you all for joining us for another hour of the Gamasutra Twitch channel. We apologize for not having an interview for you today, like we thought we would. But I'm talking to them now. We're going to try and get something set up later in the week because we'll get to get some answers to these questions we've raised today from BioWare. Hopefully we can I like talking to BioWare people. They're very nice. So hopefully we're going to try and have that. Can't make any promises right now though, because like a game developer, we have to avoid making hard promises about our product. If you liked this kind of talk, we'd love it if you'd scroll down and click the follow button, because we do go live on a regular basis, just trying to play interesting games, trying to have fun conversations like this, and give you not just reactions, but also trying to figure out what's going on from a design perspective with everything in a given game. Today we get to talk a lot about story. Chris likes to talk about systems. Alex likes to play older cool games like Deus Ex. We'll figure out a shtick for you, Alex. Don't worry.
Reaction video. I'll do the reaction video.
Chris will just go on and just react.
Show me something new. And then.
Here, I'm going to turn the camera around. Chris, react to that. Whoa. But yeah, if you like it, please follow. We do love chatting with you all. We love chatting with you, and we do try to put these up on Gamasutra after, but doing it live is always fun. I'm out of end of show stuff to talk about, so
we're just gonna let you keep going.
I'm Brian Francis, the anonymous voice in the corner. Thank you all for joining us. Chris and Alex, do you want to say bye?
Yes.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.